There is a reason the wealthiest people in America pay a lower effective tax rate than the person making $60,000 a year answering phones in an office. It is not fraud. It is not a political statement. It is a strategy, 3 steps, built directly into the tax code, used openly by people with the right understanding that almost nobody outside of certain financial circles ever gets explained to them in plain language. The strategy is called buy, borrow, die. And I want to walk you through it step by step today, not as a concept, but as a practical framework you can begin understanding and applying long before you reach the wealth levels most people associate with it. My name is Anderson, and the reason this matters is not just because it explains how the wealthy get wealthier. It is because large parts of this strategy are accessible to ordinary people right now, and the earlier you understand the mechanics, the earlier you can start structuring your financial decisions accordingly. The foundation. Why the tax code treats growth differently from income. Before the steps make sense, one foundational principle has to be clear because almost everything else builds on it. The tax code taxes income. It does not tax growth. If you earn a salary of $100,000, you pay income tax on that amount before you ever touch it. If you sell an investment for a gain, you pay capital gains tax on the profit, but if you simply own an asset that rises in value and you never sell it, the government cannot tax that appreciation. It is called an unrealized gain, and unrealized gains, regardless of how large they become, generate zero tax liability as long as the asset remains unsold. This is not a loophole. It is the foundational structure of how ownership is taxed in the United States, and it has been this way for decades. The wealthiest individuals understand this distinction with absolute clarity. They do not optimize for income, they optimize for appreciation, because appreciation is not taxed until you sell. And the strategy is specifically designed to avoid selling almost entirely. Step 1. Acquire assets that appreciate and can be borrowed against. The buy phase is not complicated, but it requires specificity. Not every asset works for this strategy. The asset must do 2 things: appreciate in value over time and be recognized by lenders as collateral that can be borrowed against. Real estate is the most intuitive example. A property purchased for $500,000 that grows to $1.2 million over a decade has generated $700,000 in unrealized gains, gains that have never been taxed because the property was never sold. The rental income it produced along the way was taxable, but the appreciation itself sits untouched by the IRS until the moment of sale. A diversified stock portfolio works the same way. An index fund position that grows from $100,000 to $400,000 over 20 years has produced $300,000 in unrealized gains. Every year that position grows, zero tax is owed on the growth. The compounding runs completely uninterrupted by the tax system as long as nothing is sold. Cash value life insurance, certain business equity positions, and high-value collectibles also qualify, though the mechanics of borrowing against each differ. The common thread across all of them is that lenders will accept them as collateral, which is what enables the second step. The mindset shift required here is significant. Most people are trained to think in terms of income, what they earn, what their employer pays them, what their business generates. The buy phase asks you to shift that orientation toward ownership. What do you own? What is it worth? Is it growing? Can you borrow against it? These become the questions that drive financial decisions. Step 2. Borrow access the value without triggering a tax event. This is the step that most people either misunderstand or dismiss because they have been conditioned to see debt as inherently harmful. The wealthy see it differently. For someone with appreciating assets, debt is not a sign of financial weakness. It is a tax-free income mechanism. Here is the core principle. Loan proceeds are not taxable income. When a lender gives you money against collateral, the government does not classify that money as earnings. You receive it, you use it, and you owe zero tax on it because technically you are required to pay it back. That obligation is what excludes it from income classification. Consider the practical application. You own a stock portfolio worth $1 million that has grown from an original investment of $300,000. You need $100,000 for a major expense. The obvious move to most people is to sell $100,000 worth of stock, but selling triggers capital gains tax on the proportional appreciation. Depending on your situation, you might lose $25,000 to $30,000 to taxes before the money is usable. The alternative: approach your brokerage for a securities-backed line of credit. Most major institutions offer this, the ability to borrow against a stock portfolio as collateral, typically at interest rates significantly lower than consumer credit. You receive $100,000. The portfolio stays intact and continues compounding. Your tax bill is zero. The interest you pay, perhaps 4 to 6% annually, is dramatically lower than the tax you would have owed by selling. The same mechanism applies to real estate through cash-out refinancing or home equity lines of credit. A property with $700,000 of equity can be refinanced to extract $300,000 in cash tax-free because it is a loan while the property continues appreciating and generating rental income. The borrowed money funds your life, your next investment, or whatever purpose you choose. The asset remains intact. The compounding continues uninterrupted. If this is landing for you, take 2 seconds and hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel. This is why wealthy people often carry more debt than you might expect. Not because they cannot pay it off, but because paying it off would require selling assets. And selling assets triggers exactly what the strategy is designed to avoid. The debt is not a burden. It is a bridge between the value locked inside appreciating assets and the liquidity needed for daily life. Step 3. Die the tax reset that completes the cycle. This is the step that sounds cold until you understand the mathematics, and the mathematics are extraordinary. When someone passes away in the United States, their appreciated assets transfer to heirs with what the tax code calls a step-up in basis. The cost basis of every inherited asset resets to its market value at the date of death, not the original purchase price. The current market value. What this means in practice is that every unrealized gain accumulated over a lifetime, potentially millions of dollars of appreciation that was never taxed during the owner's life, disappears for tax purposes at the moment of transfer. Walk through the numbers. You purchase a property for $500,000. Over 30 years, it has appreciated to $2.5 million. During that time, you borrowed against it, repeatedly accessing $1.2 million in tax-free cash that funded your lifestyle and additional investments. At death, the property is worth $2.5 million. Your heirs inherit it at that value. If they sell it immediately for $2.5 million, their capital gains tax bill is zero because their cost basis is $2.5 million. The $2 million of appreciation that accumulated over 3 decades vanishes from the tax calculation entirely. The loans taken during your lifetime are settled through the estate, typically paid off through the asset sale proceeds or through life insurance designed for exactly this purpose. After the loans are settled, the remaining value passes to heirs tax-free. The entire lifetime of appreciation, accessed through tax-free borrowing and transferred through the step-up in basis, never once triggered the income taxes that ordinary earnings would have generated throughout the same period. This is not an accidental feature of the tax code. It has existed deliberately for decades, and it is available to anyone who structures their financial life around ownership and appreciation rather than around earning and spending. What this means at an ordinary scale. The most important thing to understand about buy, borrow, die is that the principles apply at every level, not just to billionaires with complex estate structures. A 35-year-old who consistently invests in a low-cost index fund never sells through market downturns and allows the position to compound for 30 years is practicing the buy phase of this strategy. The unrealized gains accumulating in that account generate zero tax liability every year they grow. When that same person, at 50, needs liquidity for a major expense, the choice to borrow against the portfolio rather than sell it preserves both the compounding and the tax advantage simultaneously. The loan costs interest. It does not cost capital gains tax, which would be both larger and permanent. And when that person eventually passes away, whatever remains in the account transfers to heirs with a reset cost basis, meaning decades of appreciation that was never sold, never taxed, and never interrupted by the IRS transfers cleanly to the next generation. The scale is different from a billionaire's estate. The mechanism is identical. Now, this is what I want you to do. This week, calculate the unrealized gains currently sitting in any investment accounts you hold. This is the amount that would trigger taxes if you sold today, and understanding it reframes how you think about selling decisions going forward. This month, research the borrowing facilities available against assets you already own. A securities-backed line of credit through your brokerage, a home equity line of credit if you own property, or cash value in a life insurance policy. Know what is available before you need it. This quarter, examine your next planned major expense and evaluate whether it could be funded through borrowing against an existing asset rather than selling one. Run the numbers on what you would pay in taxes if you sold versus what you would pay in interest if you borrowed. The comparison is often decisive. This year, make a deliberate commitment to holding your primary investment position through market volatility without selling. Every year the position compounds without interruption is a year the unrealized gain grows and grows without generating a single dollar of tax liability. Before I end this, let me say this to you by borrow, die. 3 words describing a 3-step cycle that the tax code has rewarded for decades while most people operated entirely outside of it. The person working 40 hours per week, paying 30% of their income in taxes before it reaches their account, spending what remains, and saving what is left is participating in the income system, the one designed for labor, taxed at every step, with no mechanism for the kind of compounding that operates untouched inside an appreciating asset. The person who acquires assets, allows them to grow without selling, accesses liquidity through borrowing rather than liquidation, and eventually transfers the entire accumulated appreciation to heirs with a reset basis. That person is participating in a different system entirely. Not a secret system, not an illegal one, the same tax code, read differently, used intentionally, you understand both systems now. The question is, which one governs your next financial decision? If you are getting genuine value from this, consider subscribing. I make videos like this every week, and I treat every one like it might be the one that permanently changes how someone understands how wealth actually accumulates. I'm Anderson. I'll see you in the next one.